it's interesting that you went back to discuss the banking thing because that kind of so it's tech the whole time, but big tech like these technology companies like Microsoft, Google versus banking, they give you different expertise to go and apply. You have the option to go apply that in outside projects that you might get into because you also are in business yourself, right? There's a lot of talk in this podcast space about working a 9 to 5 versus having businesses, but you got a good balance, right? You have a great job, but then you also invest and have businesses on the side, right? Because you own some real estate also, right?
Yeah,
So you have
yeah.
real estate and you invest in other companies at some you have a group that you invest with, right?
Yep,
So
yep.
so
I've been
what's
an angel investor for the last 4 years or so. Something that I helped start up when I was at Google.
that's nice. Now what's the balance of how can we figure out a way to say, okay, I'm learning these things from these companies. It's time for me to maybe go apply it so I could benefit from what I'm learning here. Like how did you find that balance to say, oh, I know what I can apply that to. That's perfect.
So, when it came to angel investing, it's one of those things where one of the things I'm an advocate around is like equity and wealth. So, you have a lot of people that look like us from, small communities, or even black people from larger communities. We all have aspirations of being wealthy, but we don't know what that is. One of the things that happens in the private markets when you think about venture capital, you think about angel investing, it's one of the cheat codes where people get wealthy relatively quickly because they've invested in something like Google or they've invested in something like Uber or Netflix early before it hit the public markets. So what's happening with this angel group, we're trying to solve two problems. One is that people who are black or from a disadvantaged background, for say, they don't get the funding to support their ideas. So they might have the next Google, but they don't know where to get funding from because you can't go to a bank
Right.
and with an idea. So we solved that problem. Then the second problem that we are attempting to solve is that there's not a lot of black people in those private markets.
Yeah.
So the people who are getting rich from it are from those traditional backgrounds. They're white males, and they're just running the play over and over again.
Yeah.
That's how people become billionaires because hey, we've invested in this. We take that same money where we made a few million, we invest a few million into eBay. We do it again. We invest into the next company, and eventually you become a billionaire. So that's the Elon Musk way. That's how he did it. Um, so now we have people who've gained those expertise in those private markets where we can invest in it and have the conversation around what is the risk, the rewards, and those type of activities, so that we can be a part of it. How do we get a seat at the table? How do we become part of the conversation
Yeah.
in order to leverage what is happening in that world that most people don't have access to?
Right. 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 That's amazing. Now you said y'all started this 4 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was what's this 26? Yeah, 2022. Yeah, somewhere around that part. Yeah.
Okay. Have you heard? Now this was probably a big story in that world, right? The Fearless Fund. You heard about that? Where
Uh,
it's like a venture capital firm that was started to invest in black, pretty much black and minority businesses, right? But
yeah.
I think when it was sometime in the middle of Biden's term somewhere, they end up being like a lawsuit against them to stop them from being able to do that, right? Did you hear about that?
I don't know the complete story, but
Okay.
high level, I've heard about it, but not the complete
Did
details.
it make y'all nervous at all? Like, did it say like, "Oh, wait, we might need to pump the brakes," or did activity slow down, or did any stories like that scare y'all out of doing this?
No,
Okay.
mainly because we actually there's let me kind of give you the history around the group first, and that'll kind of help you to understand how we've grown. The group started as just people who worked at Google, and one of those individuals happened to work in Google Ventures, which is the uh, Google organization or business that invests as a venture component to other small businesses.
Okay.
So they knew the ins and out of how that is done. And they said, like, hey, this is something Google already does.
Yeah.
Let's focus this on, markets, individuals that don't necessarily get the funding and the opportunities that happen in the place. So they obviously knew the laws around it. They knew the components, the structure of around the execution. The problem was they just needed to crowdsource a lot of the funding that needed to happen and bring the organization together.
Right.
So once those components came in play, there wasn't a lot of risk um, from I guess a law viewpoint. The risk just became in who we decide to invest in,
Yeah.
and if we see potential returns in the future, and that's with any type of investment in itself.
No, I love that you said that just now because, excuse me, that's my lips dry so you can't see me. I'm about to put some chapstick on. Hold up. I love that you said that, right? Because this is something I've been advocating for. Because a lot of people think that when they look at the business landscape in America and they look at the economy and they think there's no black people that know how to do certain things, right? And I'm like, we might not have businesses that compete with Google, Microsoft, Oracle, any of these, but there's black people sometimes high up at all of these companies that know exactly how to do it because they do it every day. So I'm glad you said there's a person at Google who works in the ventures department and he knows the laws, or he or she knows the laws. So it's a lot less of a risk to jump in that space because we're already operating from the same standards that we learned at Google. We don't even really need these people and that's not to knock the Fearless Fund project, but they may not have had that level of VC
Right.
experience. Because you talking about Google, that's like being in the NBA and going to teach somebody about basketball. Like your word is a lot different than the word of somebody who played at the Rucker Park, and the Rucker Park is great. But when you worked at Google
Yep.
and you helped Google invest in other smaller companies, that's a whole different ballgame. So I love that you said that because that's something that there's a lot of us out here that, like when it comes to, and I just reached out to a company a few days ago because I'm like, I'm ready to jump into something. But I'm like, we need to start taking our expertise that we get from these large corporations and companies and apply what we know from our jobs to these projects. Like I would start a business and it had nothing to do with what I do day to day. And I'm like, why do I keep trying to start businesses in things I'm not expert in? There's something I'm an expert in and I'm helping people make a lot of money, helping them save a lot of money, making their business more efficient. But then I go start a business. I want to make a cotton candy company. It's like, what am I doing? So, no, that's great, man. I love that the background for the fund that you're part of, or the angel investment company that you're part of, has that type of level of expertise. That's amazing.